In this video I'm going to be going over a little bit of tricks here, or tips and tricks, whatever you want to call them. And what you'll need to do if you're watching a video, more than likely you're going to have to go full screen to view this, because these grids are going to be hard to see in the video. I'll try doing it on a dark spot here so you can kind of see what's going on. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and draw my auto pattern to create a polygon pattern here. And my first click, I am not going to be touching none of the grids here. I'm going to be off the first one just a little bit for a demonstration. And when I move my cursor, sometimes it follows the line pretty good, especially across it seems to be okay a little bit. But if you ain't got a steady hand, you can't follow the grid here. And I want it to snap to that grid because I want to make a complete pattern around it. And the grid can be key points where you want to draw your pattern. You want to be a little bit more accurate than just doing it by freehand. So what you can do is you will right click and you want to activate the pattern here. Now this is going to have some good snapping, and it's going to snap to that grid. So the intersection, I'm going to click here, then I'm going to come down here, click the intersection over here. Now when I come up to this one that never crossed the intersection, it's going to snap to the intersection of the grid, but my start point, it's not wanting to snap to it, okay? Even if I move my cursor over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, then I'm going to go ahead and deactivate the grid here. Then I'm going to be able to select, then we'll have it like that. Simple enough. Alright, we're going to go ahead and right click, and we're going to activate that grid here. Now I'm going to draw a complete square pattern here. Okay, could use a square one here, but I'm going to freehand draw it right here. Now if you look really close, I'm going to zoom way in. My cursor, I'm going to get close to this cross here where they're going to intersect, and I don't even have to be right on it. I'm going to click just a little bit off it, and it will snap directly in the crosshair. So I'll just get close enough and click, and boom, it clicked way over to the right there. That's kind of what I wanted, because I wanted to snap. Alright, then when I come around here, everything's going to be perfectly lined up. This is a good way of lining patterns up if you need to. Simple enough. Alright, now where the next section is, now I'm going to be using the arrow key on the keyboard. There's a up, a down, a left, and a right. Okay, these go in increments like this. Okay, simple enough. I'll bring it back down. Alright, now the next section is we're going to set the properties. If you right click over the pattern, we're not going to get the properties I need to go to. So we'll click off it. We'll right click and we'll go down to pattern editor properties. Okay, we'll click here. Then we got this unit distance. Okay, this will make the arrow keys, when you move them up and down, the pattern move in increments. It's moving in increments of 10. So if I set this to 50, press enter, click the pattern, when I move the arrow key, it jumps up. You can see a full square there. And I'll move it to the right, move it down, and back across. And I'll move it back up, and you can see it jump into the next square, and I'll move it back down. Now if I wanted to go half that, I would right click, pattern editor properties, and I would put half that value, 25, and press enter. Okay, and we'll do it again. Now when I press the arrow key going up, it should do half the distance of the square going above it. So I'll put the arrow key up, and there's half the distance, and I'm going to do it again, so that should fill in the square there. Okay, simple enough. If you want to change the active grid size, what we'll do is go to right click and pattern property editors. Then you can have the distance right here. Type 5, and it made it smaller. So if I move the arrow key up, you can see it moving like that. Okay, we're in the next section here. We're going to start off here where I left off. And what you can do, if you want to move this in a direction, maybe straight up or straight down without using the arrow key on the keyboard, You can hold the key down and it'll move directly like this. You can actually go ahead and what you need to do is just select this. When I select this pattern here, I'm going to move my cursor over here and I'm going to click it, and I'm just going to hold the left mouse button down, and I'm going to keep it held down. It needs to be held down. Then you turn over, or reach over, and you hold the shift key down, and then you can move the pattern straight up, straight down, or to the left, or to the right. You got to kind of do it in that order. You can't just click it, then hold the shift key down. You need to select it, and at the same time you're selecting it, keep the left mouse button held down to do that. Okay, simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and add some points in here, just for the sake of it. Select here and here. Now I go back over here and I'll select this option here to edit pattern, and if I want to move both of these at the same time, these 2 points, what I'll do is I'll select this point, then what I'm going to do is shift click this point, and I'm going to move both of them at the same time. Okay. Now they're both highlighted. Now if I hold the shift key and try selecting it again and do the same thing, let's do that. You can see it's pulling up one side, and the reason why that does that is because, let's select that again, because every time that you select that, you either are selecting it or deselecting it. So if it's already highlighted and I click it again, it's going to be unhighlighted. So that means I deselect it. Okay, so if you want to move both at the same time, just all you have to do is one side, then shift click the other one here. I'm going to let off the shift key and I can move it without the guides if I want to. So that's how you do that. If you want to rotate the pattern, you can rotate it like this if you want to. I'll do that. And if you want to scale it uniform, you can just grab these corners right here. And this will let you drag it uniformly right like that. And also the arrow key will work on these points here, so I will select here, shift click that one. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but you can move them that way, and it'll also work for edges too. So I am using the arrow key on the keyboard. Alright, in this next step, we're just going to go ahead and just make a square pattern right here. Click OK. And then what I'm going to do is turn synchronize back on. I did pause the video if you guys were wondering. And you can see it's down here where I laid it out, and it also laid it out in the same area, okay? And if it was over here, kind of where I wanted it to, I'll just press this little option right here to reset arrangement, and it's going to put that pattern on the cloth window the same as over here in the pattern window, so it'll update itself. This is if I move it over here and do this, you can see it moving like that. Alright, let's say that I want to do some symmetry patterns here. In this version they don't have it. I'm sure they'll end up getting it. Maybe the thing that you might want to do is right click and make sure the active grid is on, and I'm not going to really draw out any pattern particular here. I'm just going to do something kind of simple. What I want to do is start in the half, because I'm going to be doing some symmetry here. So what we can do is we'll start here, and I want to, let's say if I need to get some more grids here, because I might, let's say, come over here and I want it to start here, but there's nowhere to snap to, so I'll just right click, pattern editor, and we'll just have to set the grid down just a little bit here, make them a little bit smaller. Then this will give me an option to kind of snap where I'm, give me some more snapping points, basically what I'm saying. So I'll click here, here, and here. Now I want to go to the halfway mark, which will be in the center of the shadow character here, here, and finish it off here. Okay. Then what I can do is we can mirror this or copy and paste it over there. So I'm going to go Control C and Control V. Okay. Now we can set this right. I'll put it right about right here. Right click, and we will go ahead and flip that horizontally. Then I'll use my arrow key to come back over to line it up. I will need to move it by hand because I offset it just a little bit. Alright. Then you can get something like that. Or you can copy this, Control C, right click, then we'll mirror and paste this. Okay? Whatever you prefer. Alright. I'm not going to get real accurate. Now if I want to make this symmetrical, what I would do is I would copy around every point that I made besides the center one directly in the middle of the shadow character here. So I would select, let's go ahead and select this one here, create polygon patterns. Then what I will do is just zoom way in so you can kind of see, and we're going to snap to this one, way at the bottom. We're going to ignore this one in the middle, remember. I'm just going to drag over, snap to that one, snap to that one, snap to that one. We're going to ignore the one in the middle, and we're going to click here to finish it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the arrow key on the keyboard to move this down a little bit. Then I'm going to select this one and delete it, select that one and delete it. And we're going to bring this one back up in the area it needs to be. Just to double make sure, we're going to go ahead and select this here, make sure everything, both are lined up correctly. And now we got pattern is symmetrical on the left side, the same is on the right side. Alright, when you draw out a pattern, it will update over here on the left here in the cloth window, and it will update in that position. So if I was to bring something over here on the left side of the head, you can see it update over here. So with that set in mind, sometimes when people make front and back patterns like this one down here, as you can see right here, what they'll do, well I've seen most people do this, and they want to move it to the side, is they'll Control C and Control V that, and they'll bring it over here, and what happens, it'll update over here. If you want them, if you're going to have front to back, you want to stack them in that position. So what I usually just do is, if I'm going to get a copy of this, I'll Control C this, and I'll just move it out of the way so you can see this here. Control C and Control V. Okay. And I got a second copy. Instead of clicking it over here, I'll click it right directly on the same one and click it. Now they're stacked on each other over here. Then I'll bring this one over to the side here. Then as you can see here, it looks just like one over here. I'll hit some hotkeys to put it in one direction. You can use the numpad to go ahead and move this in correct directions here, and that's kind of important when you're lining patterns, because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this front pattern, and when I do that, you can see the front pattern over here got selected, and what I do is drag it to the front. At the same time, without even turning it around, since I can't see it or click it, I'll just select the pattern over here on the right. Still looks like the front one's selected, but it's not. Then I'll just pull this back just a little bit. I'll hit a hotkey and maybe move it back a little bit more. Alright. What's good about these hotkeys, front to back and all that stuff, is if let's say I was to tilt it a little bit, and I move this pattern, I get kind of offset. Okay, it should have been directly straight ahead of the other pattern. So you need to kind of be in a direct axis here for this to work. And that means front to back, left to right, or whatever. Just use the hotkeys to do this. So let's go ahead and delete that, and I'll repeat that real quick again. We'll select here. Let's just put this back here like it was gonna back from default. And what I'll do is select here, Control C, Control V, click it back again in the same right over top of the other one. Then I'll move it to the right, select this pattern, and drag it up a little bit. At the same time, you know, I can turn it if I still want to, and but I'll just select it here. And let's just turn a hotkey, and I will. Well, let's see. I have to click it again and press a hotkey, and it still looks like the front one's selected, but actually the back one is selected, because you want them lining directly in the same position. Okay, we'll go on the next section here. You can actually right click and drag over these and move these at the same time, or you can shift click these and move them at the same time. If you want to go ahead and draw out your pattern and you want to have a little curvature to it, you can, let me zoom way in here so you can kind of see. Say you wanted some curvature, you'll select here. At the same time, we'll need to select one more point, then we'll hold the control key down. That's the CTRL key, and I can have some curvature to it. If I want it straight again, I'll let off the control key and bring it down like this. Curvatures, control key, and I'll make a big old curve right here so you can kind of just see it a little bit better. Let off the control key to go straight. Hit the escape key on that. Most people would consider them curves. They are actually like Bezier curves. So if you want, like I said, if you want to make a curve, just hold the control key down while you're going. You cannot get a Bezier curve with just the first click, because if you hold the control key down, there's no curvature. There must be another point, and then you get the curvature to it. Hit the escape key, and we'll go into this section here. We'll activate this arrangement points. Select the front one here, and we'll select here. And you can see here it's got some curves to the somewhat to the body here, and you can have options over here for the surface if you ever decide that you want to change them back. And that's how that works. Okay, I loaded up the default model here, and we're going to go over these options a little bit here, just a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to select this one right here. I'm going to move my cursor over here and press yes. And that basically, when you're using arrangement points, it puts them back in the same position. And you can simulate it again. Okay? We'll just stop the simulation here real quick. And if you're new and you select this one here, like I said, it's like starting from scratch, and you'll have to move every little pattern back where it's supposed to be, because it's going to be laid out just like it is over here in the pattern window. So if I select here, everything gets moved like that. Then you've got to go back with your arrangement points and move everything where it's supposed to be. So be careful for this button, because it's like starting all over. Okay, in this next step we're going to go into particle distance. I am not hovering over the pattern or selecting any pattern for right now, so I'm going to right click, then I'm going to select show mesh. And when we did that, this is actually the geometry right here, the triangulated geometry. And when I select just this pattern, which is going to be the front one, we're going to have an option over here for particle distance. Okay, now the more the value, it's the less geometry. It's kind of backwards, and the least the value, the more geometry. So we'll type 15 and press enter. Alright, and you can see here it kind of updated and you get more geometry. So let's go ahead and I'll do a little bit bigger value here. It'll be less geometry. Press enter. It's going to take a little while to update. Then we'll get something like that. Alright. Now it's set by default at 20, and there's a reason for that is because if you got a lot of geometry and you try simulating this thing is going to get very, very, very slow. And it's probably not wise to save your files and give to somebody else that's got a lot of geometry. So put everything back at default and let them change this for you. Okay? And when I simulate this, it's probably going to be a little slow here in the I got this computer going, or a recorder going. I'm just going to stop it right now. So the mesh is a little bit not so smooth, and what gives it good results is having the particle distance where you have a lot of geometry. It makes it real smooth. If you've seen on the forum and some of the free stuffs by some of the Marvelous teams, they're all kind of rendered out in the pictures of having a lot of geometry, and that makes it look really good. The downfall is it simulates very slow. So basically what you would do is fix it like you want by default, and at the final render kick up the particle distance, well actually kick down the particle distance. That way you'll have more geometry, and you'll have a nice smooth mesh that you can export. Because if it's not, if you don't have a lot of geometry, of course it's going to be kind of boxy. And another thing with the geometry being kind of low, when you try moving one of the items over here while it's simulating, it updates a lot better. Or at least a lot quicker. That's what I meant. And with the screen recording here, it's going to get a little slow. And you can also you can select one of them, you can shift click select multiple ones of them, or you can just drag over them, and you can set all the properties at the same time to how many you want. Let's just do all these right here. Control A also works on this, and let's set this up to 30. And if I select any of these, you'll see over here that updates everyone to 30. Rearranges. Let's Control A and bring all these up just a little bit. And you'll get kind of different results when you change the particle distance. But it makes everything kind of a lot better when you move these patterns around when it updates over here. This is where you get your wrinkles. This is probably the most important part of this program. What makes everything look good is because a lot of people put the patterns on here and say, I simulate it, it looks, I already redid this so it looks alright. But if you want it to make it extra look good, real good, is when you're in simulate mode, is to go ahead and drag these out. This is what makes your wrinkles or anything that you want. Bring it in tight. This is something you should experiment with. Okay? This is what I believe is the key point of this program, and it will make your stuff look very, very nice. And if you reset your patterns here, you might get a little bit different results of your first wrinkles here. I hope you're following along. So you might have to move things again to get back to the same results. Another thing is, let's redo that again. You might also offset your patterns a little bit. You might have to rearrange them. That's when you start pulling on it when it's simulated. So the key point is to go ahead, move it around like you want it. it's still simulating, and you got the synchronize on, so everything's synchronized in both windows. And let's say kind of like that. You can increase the particle distance on here. What I basically like doing is I still like to reset my patterns, and what I like to do is kick up the geometry, quite a bit, so it's real smooth. Then I'll simulate it one more time for a export the OBJ. That way, this kind of reassures me this last time that I do this that everything's going to look just like I want it. And if you need to move it again, you can still move these over here and it'll update. But anyway, I think this is going to wrap it up. And like I said, if you're going to go ahead and save the OBJ after you simulate it, it's best to go ahead and leave everything at default, then towards the end, then kick the particle distance where it has more geometry. Alright, I hope you follow along on that part. Sounds like a tongue twister, but it's not too bad to understand once you get the hang of it. Anyway, thank you very much.